Hello.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Cam.
Well, excited to be here, everyone. So we have a very special guest, and the conversation is going to take us a couple of places, so I hope you guys are ready. But first of all, welcome, Laurie. I'm excited to talk to you. You landed at e.l.f., but can you just give us a little bit about your story, how you got to e.l.f., and what's kept you there for, 15?
2 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years, okay.
So, hello, canners out there. I just introduced myself. You see on the slide there, I'm a Chief Brand Officer at e.l.f. Beauty. And I did join 2 years ago at e.l.f. And the reason I came to e.l.f., I actually came from L'Oreal. Nearly 2 decades I spent in L'Oreal in marketing, product development, e-commerce, business development, you name it, I've sort of done it. I took a very long linear track in marketing. So for any marketers out there that are contemplating that, I can definitely give you some advice on that. But the year that I came into e.l.f., I actually made a commitment to myself. The commitment to myself, an intention word. It was set around the intention word, which is unleash, which is something I actually wear on my wrist. And that year, I set out to unleash a lot of things, my possibilities, a new career track, and I intended to live to that word. So along the way, I was meeting some people at e.l.f., and with every single meeting, I was getting more and more entranced. I was learning more about the values at e.l.f., I was learning more about their board diversity, I was learning more about their leadership team and their diversity, and it really attracted me. So when the time came that the Chief Brand Officer role opened up, it was almost very organic for me to say, yeah, throw my name in the hat and let's see how that goes. I'm sure you guys remember being in that position for each of your careers, and that moment you're like, I'm not sure. But it actually ended up working out really well, and I came over to e.l.f., and right now I tell you I live my intention word every single day, and that's really the answer to your second part of the question, which is, what is it that makes me stay at e.l.f.? And I hope that through our 27 minutes together, I'll be able to share with you a little bit about what e.l.f. Beauty is doing and why I personally love it there, and I'm choosing to stay there, and you'll learn through the journey.
Thank you. So, big transition, right? 15 years with L'Oreal, you come to e.l.f., completely different company. You know, it's a different kind of company. There's words like superpowers ingrained in the DNA in e.l.f., and I'd love to hear a little bit about, what is that? How does it show up in the marketing? How does it show up in the brand?
Yeah.
You can talk about that.
Well, e.l.f. is in a very unique position. We're currently right now the #2 mass beauty brand, and that's a pretty amazing feat considering who you're standing next to on that trajectory of top 5 brands. When I came onto the brand, I think we were #5 or #6 in the US, and so we've quickly made a trajectory. To leverage that word trajectory and the growth that we've seen, we often talk like we're going on space. It's a true thing. You know, we talk about we're going up on space, we are superheroes, because we each possess superpowers that allow us to take on this journey. We are now, and I would say this is a little bit of a bragging right, but I don't know how many of you know this, but e.l.f. is actually the #1 traded stock out of 1,500 stocks right now based on its 5-year performance. So the fact that we can do that, a brand that started only 20 years ago and is the second mass beauty brand up against all these giants, you start talking in superhero and superpower terms, right? And you start realizing that those superpowers actually come off the fact that e.l.f. has many values. It is a brand that was built on its values. And it's a brand that's built by the community, for the community, and with the community. And how those superpowers come to transcend is many different ways. From the fact that we are actually e.l.f. clean, we are formulated without 2,900 ingredients, which is an amazing feat. In the US, there's actually only 11 ingredients that the US government bans. We're over here in France, so I can say these things and everyone would understand that when I talk about formulating to EU standards. I see a lot of head nods there. And considering that our brands are e.l.f. clean, that's not enough for us. We're also a highly accessible brand. You know, we're premium quality cosmetics at a really good price. And if I was to quote my community, it's oh my God value. It's being extra without paying extra. I don't need to dig really deep into my pockets in order to get a really good SPF. And I think that's what our community loves so much about us, is that since day one, we've been able to deliver value. Some of the other superpowers that may not be so familiar to everyone is that we're also vegan, we're also double cruelty-free certified. So it really matters for us to make sure that we are living the talk when it comes to delivering really good formulas to our community. And then on top of that, we're also FTC certified. We're actually one of the only beauty brands and the first beauty brand, hopefully not the last, to be FTC certified. So this is what we mean when we say superpowers and our values. It really goes down to the core of that.
I have a quick audience question. How many of you guys have ever purchased an e.l.f. beauty product, cosmetic?
Yeah.
Okay. So, fun fact, you can do well by, still doing good in the world, because e.l.f. as of March 2024 surpassed $1 billion in annual sales. That is a true testament to what you guys stand for and continue to do. So it is possible for brands to have that sort of goal to continue to do good in this world as well as do well as a business. So kudos to you, and thank you guys for participating. e.l.f. talks about spotlighting and empowering women. You do it in a kind of fun ways. I recently saw that you guys were a sponsor at the Indy 500,
Correct.
first female,
Correct.
Catherine, if I believe correctly. Can
Correct.
you talk a little bit about why go into Indy 500 now? Why that alignment is so important?
Absolutely. At e.l.f., a lot of what we do is actually driven by our insights. And what we learned is that there's a high dropout rate for women when it comes to sports. Simply put, women are not invested in the same way as men are. And when you look at the history, when we looked at the Indy 500, we actually learned that out of its 108-year history, there's actually only been 9 female racers.
Wow.
So I'm just repeat that for a second. 108-year history at the #1 most watched spectator sport.
That's wild.
And you have 9 female racers. I will tell you, just to use a Gen Z term here, the math isn't mathing on that one. And so we had actually had a partnership. Year prior, we had actually supported Catherine Legg in her race journey. And why Catherine Legg is because she's a beacon of inclusivity, empowerment, and she's someone, I would say, who defies the labels. She's had car crashes, she's had journeys where she didn't make the races, but yet this is a woman who's determined and she never gives up. So in her historic race, this is actually her 2nd time at the Indy 500 and the 9th time that a female participated in a race, we decided to invest in Catherine Legg. We decided to support her through her journey of Indy 500. And what that meant was, in a really fun way, this is perhaps what you're talking about, is we changed our logo from e.l.f., which stands for Eyes, Live, Face, and we changed it to Empowering Legendary Females.
Yep.
I don't know that you guys can name a brand out there that would change its logo and be willing to stretch that DNA and elasticity of the brand to invest in what we believed in, which is purpose. And the purpose and the heart of the purpose is a woman named Catherine Legg, who defies all labels, who defies all stereotypes, and she races faster than the boys on the track. So that deserves one. I'll make sure I let her know about that. And she is, she's a beacon of strength, and she did an incredible job. And we went out there and not only went out there and gave her a race-branded e.l.f. car, and guess what? We did make it pink. Because why should we have to shy away from making it pink? Pink is just a color just like anybody. It doesn't have any feminine gender rules, but she wanted it pink, so we made it pink. And it wasn't because she was a girl, it's because she is a girl. And she's not scared to do that. And that's what e.l.f. wanted to do in a big way by partnering with her on the Indy 500. And so this empowering legendary females, we took over the racetrack. We also obviously provided lip oil change, which I don't know if you have any of our lip oil fans. We decided to sample those as well there at the Indy 500. I'm sorry, because some of them you were like, oh my God, what? And on top of that, we had a drone show, but more importantly than that, I will say we created a space right next to Honda. And I would say that not only was this race historic because Katherine Legge was the 9th female to compete in this race, but it was also historic because it's the first time that a beauty brand went in to sponsor the Indy 500. Because previously, we haven't felt welcome there. Beauty brands, it's not a space for women, but then if you think about the people who are going here, again, this is the #1 spectator sport viewed by 350,000 people who walk through Indy 500, 5 million who watch it, on TV. And you're thinking about the dads who are bringing their daughters during Memorial Day weekend, mind you. There was now a place for those girls. There was also a place for them to look up to and think about the fact that there's something that I can also aspire to. If I wanted to be a race car driver, I can too. Because now I have this museum, and we made a wall of the 9 women, not just Katherine Legge, the 8 women before her that had raced at the Indy 500. And it was a really fun activation. I mean, I have to say that I've never seen such a long line wrap around, not just for lip oil, but to have an opportunity to be part of e.l.f. as a beauty brand that was there at the event.
Very cool. It's not the first time that your marketing has gotten press. Actually, the most recent campaign has gotten a lot of press. And your campaign was to talk about the lack of female diversity in boardrooms. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the project and how you're planning to build your brand from that, and where do you see it going? And I think this is what we're all here to talk about.
Okay. Guys, I'm excited to talk about this one. And first, I'll start by saying why e.l.f. is taking a position in this. So for those of you who may not be aware, we started a campaign, and it's an initiative, I would say, called Change the Board Game. And the reason why e.l.f. is actually poised to say something about this is because we're one of 4 boards out of 4,200 publicly traded companies that have a composition where the board is made of 2/3 women and 1/3 diverse. I'm going to repeat that for you. 4,200 publicly traded companies, there's only 4 companies with that mix. It is also 2024. Does anyone see the problem here? This is another situation the math isn't mathing. So e.l.f. is only one of those, and it's lonely there. We don't want to be the only one, so we want more than 4. So what we decided to do was actually multiple chapters. The first thing was partnering with the NACD. The NACD, for those of you who don't know, National Association for Corporate Directors, they actually help to not just prepare people for board seats, right? But they also help to spotlight the importance of having diversity on boards. The second thing we did, for those of you who follow tennis, in the world of tennis, Billie Jean King, she's a legend, obviously. She doesn't like to be calling a legend, but we say she's the GOAT. And as you know, 50 years ago, she fought for equality on the tennis field, right? She fought for tennis. She fought for a lot of sports in making sure that women were getting equal pay for their fights in that notorious battle of the sexes with Bobby Riggs. Mm-hmm. The third part of our chapter, so you can see we're in this for the long game, and I'm only probably about here. I would say the long game is here. We just started. We started a campaign, and this is where you're going. You want me to say the words, don't you? Yeah. I'll say the words. We started a campaign called So Many Dicks. That's right, I said it. And for those of you who are like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that on stage. So many dicks. Yes, that's right, we did. e.l.f. Beauty went out there and created a campaign. And I'll tell you why we did that. A very simple stat. And get your head out of the gutter, guys, okay? This is, we're a family event here. So many dicks stands for the number of men named Richard, Rick, and Dick on boards that overpower, and actually, this is actually more than underrepresented groups of people. More men named Dick. I'm not talking about more men. That's obvious, right? I'm not talking about more white. That's obvious, right? I'm talking about more men with that name. So we took that a step further. I got your attention, didn't I? The whole back row right there. I got you guys up. You guys were on your cell phones, and you're like, what? She said what? So we started this campaign because it's obvious, I think me and my friends can go to dinner and we might talk about a company that we really like, and we know the CEO because all of us here are in those positions where we know these people. How many of you can actually name the board members or know the composition on the companies that you love? I can say I can't. My husband probably couldn't. My friends couldn't either, and neither could my boss. So in order to make this conversation at the dinner table, at the water cooler, and to make it to the top of the agendas on boards across the world, we decided to go after so many dicks. And it's okay to be a dick. We're not saying it's not okay to be a dick. You can. We just want more of everyone else at the table with you. Because that's how you make decisions on behalf of your community. Board seats are at the highest seats of decision-making power. They are deciding the direction. They are the sail in your boat on where your company goes. And if your board doesn't reflect the diversity, then you're not making products or services that are actually serving your community. And when I mentioned before, e.l.f. is a brand that's for the people, by the people, with the people. That's what I mean. Every day, our community wakes up, we wake up to our community, and our community guides us in what should we launch. What do you want to see? Our most recent launch, called Bronzing Drops, that was quite viral, was actually driven by our community. I didn't come up with that. Our product development team didn't come up with it. I'd love to take credit for it, but it didn't. It actually came in a TikTok Live that our CEO was sitting in a TikTok Live, talk about accessibility, and we were talking about another launch, and all the comments were, I want jelly pop, I want bronzing drops, exclamation point, exclamation point. And guess what he did after that TikTok Live? He walked out of the room and he walked down the hallway and he went straight to ask for that. And that's what happened. That launch came out about 6 months later. So this goes back to my point. When you are listening to your community, when your community and your board are reflections and mirrors of each other, you make better decisions for your business. It's not only good for the board, it's good for business, and it's actually profitable. Our board at e.l.f. has actually led us through 5 years, and I'm going to actually go farther to say 21 consecutive quarters of growth. We are one of 5 companies that had 21 consecutive quarters of growth that have averaged over 20%. So when you sit here and you say, she's talking about dicks, I'm, again, not talking about the fact that there's too many men. I'm saying you've got to open up and put some chairs at the table for women and diverse people so you can make better decisions. That's what I mean when I say so many dicks. Now, we're on the long game for this. We're looking to actually double down on the number of diverse people on boards. We can't do this alone, so I'm really glad to have this stage where I can share this with you. And thank you for pushing me there. But to share this initiative with you, because if we want to go and hit our goal, which is to double down on diverse seats in boards, in 3 years, by the way, we're going to have to do this together. And we're going to have to do this by lifting the community first by awareness. Awareness of the fact that there is disparity on boards. And it's not making the best decisions necessarily for your business. So I would love to welcome the opportunity where next year I'm standing here, and I'm not saying that there's 4. I hope that I can actually use my hands and my toes on this stage to represent the number of companies that have joined us in this mission. So thank you for that.
Very well said. It's been an ongoing issue to get a little bit more diversity and women on boards. I mean, I've probably participated in so many foundations and fundraisers myself around that. You know, just in, I think, Los Angeles or California in the last year, there were over 200 beauty brands that were launched. I feel like every celebrity has a brand. Everybody is launching beauty brands. You know, and there's such great camaraderie in the beauty business. I've seen that with influencers. Like, how does e.l.f., like, what is your biggest differentiator versus other brands that are in the marketplace?
You know, it would be so hard for me to answer that and just say one thing. But I'll start with, at the core, what we're really made of. The first thing when you walk into any e.l.f. office, wherever it may be, whether it's San Francisco, whether it's LA, the office where Samantha works, whether it's the New York office where I'm based out of, the first thing that you see is not necessarily the e.l.f. logo. It's first you get hit with the mission, the vision, and then you actually see this very simple line: bold disruptor with a kind heart. And I think that's one of the big differentiators at e.l.f. You know, a lot of brands go out there and they boldly disrupt. And hello, we're in the game of disruption here, right? That there's not that many brands that go at it with a kind heart. And what do I mean by the kind heart? I mean the purpose work that I just shared with you. Whether it's Indy 500 and creating spaces where females can feel like they have a space in the driver's seat, or whether it's creating more seats for diversity and women in board seats. But it's also through our charitable giving. It's also through our causes. It's also through the fact that we actually wake up every single day, not just listening to our community, but out there to empower our community through self-expression, through positivity, through inclusivity, through accessibility. And that's, I think, one of the differentiating factors is that if you meet any single person at e.l.f., you will be left indifferent because of what we stand for and because of what it is that we also strive to do as a brand.
I mean, it seems like from a marketing perspective, you're attacking conversations in boardrooms, you're going after young athletes. Like, how would you define your target audience? It's very different than what I see in the basic beauty branding.
Yeah. There's no doubt that I think we have a very strong Gen Z consumer base. Our community is very strong there. In the most recent Piper Sandler study, for the 5th consecutive quarter, we are the #1 favorite teen brand. So we know that we have a really good penetration with Gen Z, and it's probably because they see a reflection of themselves in our brand and who we work with. But I also have seen that we're a brand that has a very broad appeal. And what I mean by that, it's not just a Gen Z brand. It's actually a millennial brand. It's actually a boomer brand. We've actually seen a really big majority of Gen X there. And the reason for that is because this brand is accessible and everyone sees themselves in the brand. In fact, we know that because one of the insights that our community gave us was the fact that there's multi-generational theft of e.l.f. that happens in households. And I'm not talking about the sister taking from the sister. That's obvious, right? You're pointing, who is he to you? There you go, your husband's taking your stuff. Get your own. But
my daughter's taking my stuff.
So we actually know about this. They've actually coined it, our own community coined it intergenerational death, but they cause it cause crime, and they called it e.l.f. pinching. We didn't know what e.l.f. pinching meant. There's no urban dictionary, maybe now there is, but there was no urban dictionary for it. But what we learned is because it's got such broad appeal in a household, not only do you have the grandmas who are taking from the granddaughters, you have the aunts who are learning from their nieces and taking their mascara, and so on and so forth. It was actually an insight that was so strong, Anna, that drove us to create a 15-minute documentary parody called Cosmetic Criminals. If you haven't seen it, I would say tonight, after whatever party you're going to, put it up on your YouTube. I guarantee it's going to be a really good treat. It's 15 minutes that will keep you in suspense on who did it, because it follows a family through their story of e.l.f. pinching and cosmetic crime. And just to highlight, the 2 geniuses and the brainchilds who are in this room that worked with me on that are standing right there, Evan and Jeff. Wave to everyone.
Very cool. Wait, cosmetic?
That's proof,
Say it
right?
again?
When they tell you they're e.l.f. pinching, and they tell you about intergenerational cause crime, and it's global. It wasn't just happening in the US, we found it everywhere in our social. That tells you we've got a broad appeal.
What was the name of the film again?
Cosmetic Criminals.
Cosmetic Criminals for everyone tonight, if you can't sleep and still adjusting to the time. So definitely we'll check that out, because I'm really curious, because it's a conversation in my own household, so I'm going to maybe send it to my daughter.
Learn a couple of tricks from that. Yeah.
Exactly. We've all seen so many people speak and so many panels. I think we've had a great experience at Cannes so far. I don't know if you have, but you know, I always leave every panel like, if there are 3 things that we need to remember about your brand, or takeaways that you want us to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
I would definitely say it's the bold disruptor of a kind heart, the purpose, and knowing that, you know, a lot of people would say, e.l.f., you're a beauty brand. Why would you be talking about boards? Right? You don't belong here. This is not your space. Let somebody else take this on. But no. So I stand by our statement. We are a bold disruptor of a kind heart, because we will continue doing that. Bold disruptor doesn't mean you just stay in the space that you believe in. When you see something, right, you get behind it. And that's actually who e.l.f. is. We are very authentically bold, and we stand in our own voice. And that's one thing about the brand that I would say is undeniable. The second part about the brand that I probably would say is that we also don't take ourselves too seriously, as you can see. calling ourselves so many dicks, or our collaboration with Liquid Death. I don't know if any of you saw that. The fact that we went out there and created a Get Ready With Me, or rather we flipped the traditional Get Ready With Me to create a corpse paint look with Liquid Death. And had people clamoring for not just the bottles, but the corpse paint look. And the golf community then came out and said, I feel so seen. And that wasn't one of our missions, but that's the beauty of what e.l.f. does. We don't take ourselves seriously. We go out there to create entertainment for our community, and then we're met and we actually end up tapping subcultures and making people feel seen. That makes my job so rewarding. That goes back to my intention word of unleash, because what I'm able to do is I'm able to unleash creativity and boldness and do the things that probably a lot of people would say, you're in beauty, this is not, you don't need to do that. But that's the last thing about e.l.f. is that we're also there and we're a different kind of company. And I've hoped I've shared a little bit about e.l.f., maybe some things that you didn't know before you walked into here and sat on that chair. You've learned something about e.l.f., and it's that, we are very irreverent, we are very bold. We also allow ourselves to go into spaces and places because that's how we authentically connect with our community in the way that we do.
Thank you for that. We have a couple minutes to take some questions, if that works. So just raise your hand and we'll get a mic over to you. Any questions?
I will answer anything. And if I don't know it.
What was your revolution under Be Bold?
Say that one more time.
What was the revolution under Be Bold?
Bring it closer.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
What was the revolution under Be Bold?
On my people, meaning our teams?
Yes, like where did the brand being bold, being unleashed, where did that come from? Where did you stem from that?
Where is the brand being bold?
How did you?
How did the brand
okay.
become
I'm
so
sorry.
bold?
Is that June?
Yes.
Okay, so apparently my vision is still there, but my hearing's out. Okay, I can see your name from here. Don't ask me how. Okay, so that's a great question, June. I think that this goes back to the genesis of e.l.f. e.l.f. actually started, for those of you who don't know, as a brand selling premium cosmetics over the internet for $1. How many of you know that? Raise your hand. How many of you know that we did that and we sold premium cosmetics? I'll finish my sentence. Premium cosmetics over the internet for $1 in 2004. I mean, okay, no hands. So I'm glad I'm sharing that. This was a brand that did start that. Our founders actually started this business and created an opportunity because they saw that there were no premium quality cosmetics that were accessible and available to people. This brand has always been here to create value and democratize beauty. And that goes back to our mission, which is to make the best of beauty accessible to every eye, lip, and face. And that's a responsibility that we carry every single day. But the reason and how we came to become bold disruptors and to, I'm sitting here with the word intention, word unleash, is because it actually goes back to our DNA. Our DNA was disruption. 2004, just to put it back into terms, this is the year Facebook launched. This is the year that Amazon Prime was in beta. It was like a thing. Starting to become, now, of course, my husband can't stop with my Amazon Prime, but you know what I mean. So if you think back to where we were, everyone betted against e.l.f. at that time. There's no way you can sell cosmetic. People need to see it. People need to smell it. We're women. We like to swipe it. We need to try it on our lips. So the fact that you would do that over the internet without giving that opportunity for anything else is beyond. But that business actually thrived really well and grew a really loyal following. And that loyal following became the best base for reviews and ratings before it became a thing. Because it would say, it's $1, I'll try it, okay. That lip liner was great, but I would love it for you to be a little bit creamier. That eyebrow pencil was really good, but I would love for it to come in dark brown. That became a pool for our founders to actually completely, continuously reiterate and iterate on what we were actually putting out there. So the basis and the DNA and the foundation of this company and the history of it actually provided the platform that it's on today, which is one of testing and learning, being bold disruptors of a kind heart, and going out there and just being bold and doing its thing, does that make sense? And also digitally disrupting and listening to its consumer is also rooted in that story. So thank you for asking that question, June.
incredible that a beauty brand was so tech forward back in 2004. You just don't. So thank you everyone for being here. Let's give another round of applause for Laurie for being here. And thank you for Brand Innovators for having us. Appreciate it.